Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we are solving count partitions with even sum difference. So the problem tells us that we are given an integer array nums of length n, and we want to partition the array into two non-empty subarrays. And after splitting into a left and right subarray, we want to return the number of partitions where the difference between the sum of the left and right subarrays is even. So if we look at this example, there are four ways we could partition where their difference will be even. And if we look here, we cannot partition in any way where the difference between two subarrays are even. And if we look here, there will be three ways because we can do 2 minus the sum of this subarray. We can do 6 minus 14, and that will be -8. We can do 12 minus 8, and that will be 4. So there will be three ways to partition where the difference between the sum is even. So now that we have seen some examples, let's get to how we can solve this problem. So to solve this problem, we should ask ourselves, what is the maximum number of partitions possible, regardless if the difference of the two sums are even or not, and it will be the length of array minus 1. So I can show you guys some examples. Let's say the length is 4. We can partition one way, two way, and three way. So it'll be 4 minus 1, which is 3. And let's say the length is 3, then there will be two ways. We can partition this way and we can partition this way. So we should know that the maximum number of partition will always be the length of array minus 1. Now the second thing we should know is that if the sum of the entire array is even, then the difference will always be an even number minus an even number, or an odd number minus an odd number. In other words, the difference will always be an even number. Now, vice versa, if the sum of array is odd, then when we partition them, it will always be an even sum minus an odd sum, or an odd sum minus an even sum. In other words, the difference will always be odd number, which means if the sum is even, then there will be a length of array minus 1 ways to partition, and if the sum of array is odd, then there will always be no ways to partition, so we'll just return 0 if the sum is odd. So what we can do is we can look for the sum, and if the sum is even, then we'll return the length of the nums minus 1, and if it is odd, then we'll just return 0 right away. So let's go through this example. So first we calculate the sum. 10 plus 10 is 20, plus 3 23, plus 7 30, plus 6 is 36. So the sum is 36, and since 36 is even, we will return the length of nums minus 1, which is 4, so we return 4. And the time complexity would be O of n, where n is the number of number in nums, because we will have to look through nums and add the sum. So that's why the time is O of n, and the space complexity would be O of 1, because the space does not depend on the size of the input. So now let's get to the coding part. So first we'll calculate the sum of the input array, so sum of nums, and we will set it to total. And we want to check if it is even, so we will do total modulo 2. If it equals to 0, that means it's even, so we will return the length of nums minus 1. Otherwise, we will just return 0. See if it works. Okay, perfect. Hope this was helpful. Thank you all for watching. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to leave in the comment section, and I hope to see you all again soon.